He's a psychopath patriot, and we love him. You know, I read some of the quotes from the real Chris Kyle. He said, "I hate the damn savages," talking about the Iraqis, "and I've been fighting and I always will. I love killing bad guys. Even with the pain, I loved what I was doing. Maybe war isn't really fun, but I certainly was enjoying it." I don't know. Eisenhower once said, "I hate war as only a soldier who has lived it can." I just don't see this guy in the same league as Eisenhower. I'm sorry. And if you're a Christian, I know this is a Christian country, I hate the damn savages and I don't give a what happens. That doesn't seem like a Christian thing to say.
For some reason, there are those with a personal agenda who seem to think it's humorous or entertaining to mock what some members of our military face every day. It's not amusing. More important, it's often dead wrong. American Sniper is one of the most powerful films you will ever experience. But it's much more about war. It's at the core a story about one man and what he must come to grips with. What his job is, not only when wearing a uniform, but coming home to deal with the mental remains that haunt so many of these warriors every day of their lives. Our guest is a former member of the U.S. Marine Corps. He served as a reporter in Iraq from 2004 to 2007. And he's author of the book, The Evil Hours, a biography of post-traumatic stress disorder. David Morris joins us on the show. David, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
David, when you hear people like Bill Maher call Chris Kyle a psychotic patriot, and then there were comments made this morning on MSNBC by a reporter there who talked about Chris Kyle's racist tendencies towards Iraqis, and he went on killing sprees in Iraq on an assignment. Knowing full well what soldiers have to go through every single day, does that enrage you when you hear people say these things?
Well, I think Bill Maher's choice of words is unfortunate, calling him a psychopathic killer, I think. But I think, to be perfectly honest, I think he has a good point. I knew a lot of Marines that did not hold the same views, that held strikingly different views of Iraqi populace. And I'm thinking of one. I mean, I spent a lot of time in Ramadi. I was in the same patrol base Chris Kyle was for a week. And I'm not, I worked in the sniping community when I was in the Marine Corps, and I think I am not entirely comfortable with Chris Kyle being held up as the paragon of American military virtue. I think I knew a lot of snipers that did not have the sort of racist feelings, frankly, that he had. And I think calling Iraqi savages is not, which he does repeatedly in the book. I mean, I have to be honest. I'm more on Bill Maher's team with this.
No, please do be honest, because there are many people, though, and I'm going to ask you back. Thank you for being honest here. There are many people who say, though, that when you're in war like that, it has that psychological effect on you, where simply being, you do want to kill these people because you realize that they're enemies, and a lot of what you say and a lot of how you feel because you're in that situation is not necessarily how you would normally feel. It is pushed upon you by the situation and by the fact of being in war.
Well, I would say, I think the problem with this conversation, the larger cultural conversation is we're saying either you are Chris Kyle and you hate Iraqis, or you're a liberal wimp, or some, pick your adjective, and you hold a completely different view. And then, in fact, there's a whole rainbow of possible feelings you might have in war. And many of the Marines, some of the most successful counterinsurgents that I worked with, and I'm thinking of an event that was at the exact same patrol base, Cop Falcon, where Chris Kyle was. And there was this whiteboard that had a bunch of aphorisms and sayings on it from 3rd Battalion, 8th Marines, the Marine unit that had been in Ramadi for a longer period than Chris Kyle's team was. And one of the aphorisms on this whiteboard was, sometimes the best shot is the shot you never take. This was the beginning in 2006 when Chris Kyle was in Ramadi. This was the beginning of the Anbar Awakening, when for the very first time we were beginning to understand that we couldn't kill our way to victory. And that was one of the central tenets of General Petraeus, who in my mind is sort of almost an Eisenhower of our time. That was one of his primary arguments, was that you cannot kill your way to victory in Iraq.
Well, you can't kill your way to victory, but you certainly can do what you can.
Holding up Chris Kyle as the
ultimate warrior. But wait a minute, you certainly can, though. While you can't kill your way you can't kill your way to victory, you certainly do have to take care of the bad guys who are there at the moment to kill you, correct?
Sure. There is an undeniable kill or be killed aspect to war, but I feel like, but it is a question of emphasis, and I feel like American Sniper is the #1 film in America right now, and I think a lot of people are rightfully so. Among my Iraq veteran friends, the book is sort of treated as a joke because it's very racist, it's very one-sided, it's very one way of experiencing the war. And so I think it honestly concerns me that Americans are so interested in this. And I think there a lot of times people go to these movies for the pornographic sort of rubbernecking effect. The same reason they slow down and watch an accident on the freeway. They want to feel, they want to see people get shot in the face. They want to see bloodshed. They want to see gunplay. But my personal Iraq experience was very different, and I didn't feel the way he did. And in fact, I knew a lot of snipers, that I served with in Iraq, and that I served with in the Marine Corps, and then later met in Iraq, that were incredibly effective shooters. They were great snipers. They were sniper instructors at the Marine Scout Sniper School and held radically different views than Chris Kyle. So I think, it's perfectly acceptable to have a variety of responses to the Chris Kyle story.
Well, it certainly is good to have a variety of responses, and you're right. But the 18 people that I've spoken with who've been over there, I think all of them have basically said that they agree with what they saw in the film, because they also agreed with the snipers, they agreed with their targets, they agreed with much of what they saw. They did not ridicule it. You're right. You have, I have, we all have different views. I only have a minute left. We specifically wanted to ask you about the PTSD issue here. In your opinion, is the VA doing enough to care for these people when they come home to help them make the transition?
Well, the short answer is no. And the VA has spent, it's the second largest part of the U.S. government. They're spending a lot of money. But, some of the therapies they work are good, and some of them, I wrote an op-ed in the New York Times for the 18th. One of their therapies, prolonged exposure, has a lot of side effects which have not been explored and not reported on. And the VA does not really offer individualized, personalized psychotherapy like they did in previous eras. And that's sort of a resource issue. They do not offer personalized one-on-one individual psychotherapy. That's not widely available as it should be. And that's largely because they don't, to hire that many therapists and psychiatrists to do that kind of therapy would take more money than the VA has right now. So there is this lack of personalized. I mean, just yesterday I was talking to some Army National Guard vets from New Jersey who, it took them a long time to actually have a meaningful conversation with a therapist about the issues they were struggling with.
Well, this is something that we need to spend a lot more time in. Of course, we got off on a different subject here, which is still worthwhile of the discussion here, into how people view American Sniper. Chris, let's get you back on again real soon because we're all out of time. Let's focus specifically on what happens here on PTSD next time we talk.
Okay, thank you.
Good to talk about
American Sniper, I'm happy to talk about it.
Book is The Evil Hours, a biography of post-traumatic stress disorder, and it is written by David Morris. Stay tuned. MidPoint will continue.